Hello everybody, this is Ryan Kurczak here from Asheville Vedic Astrology, and today I have with us Channing, also of Asheville Vedic Astrology. So if you go to ashevillevedicastrology.com and go to the Vedic Astrologers page, you'll be able to see her bio and her email address, so if you want to contact her for a session. And some of you might already know her because she is the astrologer that I typically refer people to, along with a few others. But today we're going to be looking at the transits for January of 2016. So this is the first time I've done anything like this. It's the first time Channing's done anything like this, so we'll see how it goes. And I want you to remember that as we go through this process, that when it comes to transits, that these are simply trends that will be applicable to you if you already have that indication within your birth chart. Meaning that if we talk about frustration with peers and colleagues due to Mars's transit, and you know that from your past experiences that you have frustrations with peers and colleagues, then you know to pay attention to that time period. If you have a tendency to be successful in gambling, some of my clients seem to do, and we talk about a Jupiter transit that can support that, well, that's when you need to pay attention to that time. So all this is specifically based on your own particular chart, but mainly based on your own particular experiences. All right. And I also would like to say that we're at Dobra Tea in Black Mountain, so we will have some tea served to us while we're going along. And Channing has been talking with the owner, Andrew, about doing some astrological readings at Dobra in downtown Asheville, so you might be able to find her there. All right, Channing. Well, welcome.
Great, Ron.
Yeah. Good to have you with us.
Oh, thanks.
All right, so our tea has been served.
Beautiful.
You're up for some Genmaicha?
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Here's to 2016, right? That's what we're going into.
Yeah.
So basically, what we're going to be looking at in January are the continuing transits of Jupiter through tropical Virgo and Saturn through tropical Sagittarius. Mm-hmm. And of course, those are going to go for like the next, 8 months or more, right? So those will be appropriate.
Yeah, Saturn will be there till the end of 2017, actually.
Right.
December 2017. And I think Jupiter's going to be in the sign of Virgo until August this year, 2016. Right.
Oh, and keep in mind, everyone, that we use the tropical zodiac, so be aware of that. All right, so Jupiter, Saturn, and then we have some of the faster moving planets. So where would you like to start in the whole?
Well, I mean, for me, I think that the biggest thing in January is the exact conjunction of Jupiter and Rahu together. I think that's a really powerful kind of sort of longer term, because Jupiter is a slower moving planet. It's going to have more impact when it's conjuncting the North Node. And
right.
The North Node itself can bring in a lot of extremism when it's conjuncting a planet. So extreme behaviors, material desires, basically, like going for the thing that you think is going to get you where you want to go, but at the same time it might not be the clearest path. Right. It can just push you in a way that you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Well, so when is that?
It's starting now.
Okay,
yeah,
so we've already got.
Starting.
Are these the transits? That
yeah, these are the transits here,
okay.
And so we got Jupiter at 23 degrees and Rahu at 24 degrees.
Right.
And what's going to happen is Jupiter's going to turn retrograde this month, and so Jupiter and Rahu are going to come together, and they're going to travel in exact conjunction because of that retrograde action with Jupiter, and they're going to travel together probably through the whole month of January and then a few weeks into February even. So we got like a 6-7 week period of this exact conjunction going on between those two.
And with Jupiter and Rahu, since Jupiter's going retrograde, one of the things I typically see with Jupiter is that when it goes retrograde, those things that we think are really good ideas, or the luck that we think we have, when it goes retrograde, we spend a little too much time banking on that luck. So with the Rahu there, would that make a person possibly have potential to be even more confused in that area? Or
well, I don't think Rahu's going to bring in a whole bunch of clarity.
Right. That's true.
I mean, it can bring some more intensity with what we believe, though.
Right.
So if you really think something, when Jupiter starts going retrograde and Rahu's with it, it may give you a stronger fanaticism with your beliefs.
Hey, I feel that.
Yeah.
So those of you who are Virgo ascendants, you're going to be more fanatic during the month of more fanatic during
Yeah.
the month of January.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that the gift of the astrology is to look at the high side of it and to look at the low side of it and to kind of bring yourself into check. If you are, I mean, that's difficult to say because if you really believe something, you may just be running head, forward. But
Right.
it could be that when Jupiter goes into retrograde, you have a little more time to kind of go internal
Right.
as well and kind of check yourself, like in the area of Virgo, which is criticism and analytical thought and also purification. I mean, Virgo's about health and healing, and it's also about service to other people. So you can kind of make a checklist and say, am I following the high side of Virgo or am I following the low side of Virgo with Jupiter in here? And the low side is going to be criticism and blame and denial and not being able to see all the points of view. Because when Jupiter is affected by Mercury, you become myopic. You can't see the bigger picture. And so that's the issue with Jupiter being in Virgo. But the gift of Virgo is the sort of purification of the belief systems that we don't really need, the things that you don't really need. And you can kind of give yourself a checklist and say, am I including other people's opinions? Am I seeing all sides of this view? Am I serving others with this viewpoint? Is this something that's going to be giving and beneficial to everyone, or is this only my personal kind of desire? So I think those are the things to watch out for with Jupiter.
So going more inward when you're trying to figure something out, not getting so caught up in the confusion of a situation. And since it's Virgo, so again, Virgo ascendants, this will be happening on the body, the area of the body, which is health, also personality, how you project yourself to the world. And all these transits that we're talking about, with Jupiter and Rahu, you'll need to think about what house is that in for you. And whatever that house is, whatever it means, then you need to be aware of this kind of energy coming into play. So for example, if we're talking about Gemini ascendant, that's your 4th house, which could deal with things like your home, your vehicles, your mother. For Sagittarius ascendant, that will be your 10th house, which will show that you'll need to be aware of this kind of energy in the area of career. Pisces ascendant, that'll be your 7th house. So everything that we're talking about when it comes to a planet, we'll talk about the sign the planet's in, and then you need to figure out what house is that for you, and then you can interpret that for your own personal experiences. All right.
Yeah.
So
and
that's good.
I think that it is going to have a biggest effect on people who either have their ascendants or have a personal planet in those dual signs. So Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius. And what I like to do too is look at the moon and see where these things are happening from my moon, because it'll kind of click in together from my ascendant and from my moon is going to give both things happening at once.
Right.
So.
Okay. And so this issue with Jupiter and Rahu, based on your notes here that you have, that's going to be going on mainly through all of January and then into the beginning of February 2016. Correct?
Yeah, several weeks into February, and it's kind of a transit that's happening throughout the rest of the the spring too, because even though they're not going to be exactly conjuncting each other, they're still in the same sign. So it can be to a lesser degree. This is maybe going to be the most intense part of it.
Right. And with Virgo, since that's a natural sign of health and well-being, that might be an indication.
What note do you want with your masala?
Almonds, please. Almonds. Thank you.
So with Virgo and Rahu and Jupiter there, then that could show a time period that you need to pay attention to your health, particularly because that is what Virgo represents. Watching the diet, purifying the diet. So all of you fasting junkies out there, you are actually going to be vindicated in doing your fasts January through spring of 2016.
Well, and I think it's important, something that you brought up a while ago, was to look at Mercury, to see how Jupiter's going to be acting. So when you look at Mercury and see what kind of friend or enemy sign, or weak or strong sign that Mercury is in, is going to give you the high points and the low points. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I'll pour some
tea. We gotta
tea.
get that on camera.
Yeah. Okay, so there's Jupiter.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like Mercury's in a neutral sign, in the sign of Capricorn, basically.
Right.
Saturn's...
Well, it's in a friend sign, actually.
Is friend... Mercury's friends are Venus and the Sun.
Mercury's not friends with Saturn?
Saturn's friends with Mercury.
Ah, you're right. We'll edit that out.
I'm like, I think...
We know I don't have my little piece of paper over my computer for
Saturn
this.
is a friend of Venus.
Yeah. That's right. Okay.
Saturn's neutral to Mercury. So
it's in a neutral. So Mercury's in a neutral sign. Yeah.
Mercury's in a neutral sign, and is going to be in a neutral sign through this retrograde that's coming up. Maybe we'll talk about that next, because Mercury's going to be retrograding.
That's very good. Let's go to that Mercury retrograde, because everyone loves Mercury retrograde. And here's my personal opinion on Mercury retrograde. Those of you who are wondering. So Mercury. I was thinking about this in the car on the way over here. You're going to have problems with Mercury when you personally have problems with Mercury in your chart. Now, how do we know that? Well, Mercury is often associated with communication issues, travel issues, things like that. But really, Mercury, he does deal with those things, but he's a planet that deals with managing the affairs of your life. Mm-hmm. So when do things go wonky? When you can't manage the affairs of your life. So if you have a tendency to have difficulty communicating with others, if you have a tendency managing the affairs of your life, if you know you have difficulty with technology from time to time, then you need to pay attention to Mercury retrograde. If you're able to stay on track and these things hardly ever bother you, then don't worry so much about Mercury retrograde. You might not want to begin a new business venture during Mercury retrograde. That's a different story. But you got to remember that if it's not in your chart as a problem, then it's not going to necessarily be a problem from the transit as well. All right. So anyway, back to you, Channing.
Well,
so what are the dates, first of all, for Mercury going retrograde?
Let's see. Mercury's going to go retrograde on January 5th. So it's going to pop up into Aquarius for just a degree, and then it's going to come right back through Capricorn, and it's going to be retrograding for 3 weeks.
Okay. Mercury
retrogrades 3 times a year for 3 weeks at a time. So this is Mercury retrograding in Capricorn, Earth sign. Which is interesting because we've got this theme coming up with Capricorn and Virgo. So all these signs are kind of Earth signs, which I think have the potential to ground us and give us the stability that we need. And so when I see Mercury going through Capricorn, I see it as an opportunity to go in and sort of simplify and to slow down a little bit, to pay attention. I think that Mercury going through Capricorn is going to be a lot of people sort of doing their taxes because it's the end of the year. So I think that time frame is a good time frame actually to sit down and pay attention. Go and make sure you have enough time to do it twice, to do it 2 or 3 times, to really make sure all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. Because when Mercury goes retrograde, what I found is that it's an inward detail time. So it seems to go crazy. Yeah, if you have difficulty with Mercury in your chart, what it is an opportunity to see how you're not managing things in a proper way. So everything will fall apart. So you can see, oh, well, I guess the way I'm doing this isn't efficient.
Right.
And,
and will Mercury reach back to Pluto during the transit at any point?
It's going to reach back to Pluto, and it's going to reach back to the Sun. Let's see. Mercury conjuncts Pluto. I haven't had that, but we can play with the transits here.
Because it seems like that would be a more potent experience of Mercury things falling apart.
Mercury just actually last week, about 10 days ago or so, conjuncted Pluto and was squaring Uranus at the same time. So there was a lot of sort of communication breakdown and communication transformation that was going on during that time frame.
Okay. And that was probably, December 21st or so?
Yeah, it was right around the solstice. So here's Mercury conjuncting Pluto. So this is January 22nd.
Okay.
Of course, I opened my transits. It's right on there. But
so January 22nd, Mercury conjuncts Pluto.
And it'll be a few days before and a few days after, too, as it goes through. And then it's going to conjunct again as it moves forward again. Well, it'll be just kind of stationed right on there.
And since that's tropical Capricorn, which is the natural 10th sign of the zodiac, could that indicate that the conjunction there would give difficulties in the proper management of one's affairs in regards to career and work and activity in the world?
In Capricorn, because it's aligned with the 10th house and the 10th sign. I think it has to do with business and management, and it has to do with our affairs of the world. And Capricorn's an interesting one because we were talking about how karmic of a sign it is, because you end up working through a lot of karma in Capricorn, because it's a sign of Saturn. It's a sign of rolling up your sleeves and responsibility and getting it done and doing what it takes. And the interesting piece too is to not be attached to the outcome of that work. That you can only be attached to your efforts. So while Mercury is going back through, and it's going to conjunct Pluto, and it's going to conjunct the Sun in transit. So there's a lot going on here with our own personal ego and our belief systems once again. So we've got this Jupiter in Virgo giving us this purification, and then Mercury going backwards saying, don't attach all of that ego onto it. And what else is going to happen is there's a new moon in Capricorn that happens too. That's going to be on the 9th. So we've got all of this stuff happening right at the beginning of January. We've got yes.
And January 9th is Jimmy Page's birthday, everybody. So happy birthday, Jimmy Page.
I did not know that by heart, but that's great.
He's a Capricorn.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, there's this new moon energy in Capricorn. Mercury's going retrograde. The Sun's conjuncting Pluto. Mercury's conjuncting Pluto. Mercury's conjuncting the Sun. There's all sorts of stuff about our own personal attachment to our outer efforts, the outcome of our efforts. And in my life, with my philosophy, is that the more I'm just focused on the details of what I can do and not worried about how it all turns out, but just give the best that I can, I tend to have the most satisfaction from that.
And since we have the new moon, you've got Mercury, Pluto, the Sun coming into play there too. It's in Capricorn. Could that also indicate a time period where things get shifted to see new ways of doing things, or new ways of looking at the world, or again letting go of old ideals?
Well, Capricorn
old
is
ways
old
of doing
ideals.
Things. Well, it is old ideals, but it's got Pluto there. That's what I'm saying.
It's got Pluto there.
So it's going to point out.
But it also could be a transformation of, what I see it is like taking the best of the old, taking the best of the things that are traditional and the things that have worked in the past, and kind of filtering through maybe the newer ideas that haven't worked through, because Capricorn's a real traditional sign.
True.
And so it's a movable sign, so there are changes that come.
But again, Pluto's there.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to that. So Pluto's going to be challenging that, though, right?
Pluto is going to dissolve the ego around it. Pluto is going to challenge it, but what Pluto's doing, I think, is dissolving our personal identification with those things and allowing us to do more of the dharmic work, the purpose of Capricorn, which may be. I think it's interesting. I can't help but apply this to what I see going on the global picture, and what comes up is this immigration crisis, and how we're really being tested, and what's coming up are all of our roots with where our families and our backgrounds have had to immigrate from other places, and how that's a tradition here in the United States, it's a tradition in Europe, but the overwhelming humanitarian effort that
is
it's
to
going
keep them
to
all
take.
out.
Well, there's a lot.
Sorry.
Well, there's a lot.
That's what people seem to be wanting to do these days.
There's a lot of this balance back and forth that's going on. We're being asked to open our hearts, and we're being asked to look at these cultural values, but we're also being asked to be very practical.
Right.
And Capricorn's a very practical sign, and it's let's take care of our own personal needs too. It's a humanitarian sign on a certain level. But it's I need to make sure that these structures are in place so that I can go out and turn into Aquarian, which is going to be the theme next month. Now everything's going to move into Aquarius. So
so then, when is that moon hitting that whole area there? Because it looks like 27th. It's way up there in Virgo.
I think it's
it was January 9th. That's what you said, right?
It's the 9th.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
All right. Let's double check.
So, because I think the 23rd is the full moon. Because the moon's going to move into Aquarius, and then we've got this full moon that comes up in Leo later on in the month. Let's see when that happens. The 23rd is the full moon. And so, there's going to be this whole strong Capricorn theme, and then the next piece is going to be this, nice shiny full moon in Leo. it's kind of pulled away from its influence with Pluto now. So
Right.
it's going to be a little lighter, a little more playful.
That's on the 23rd, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
at the end of January on the 23rd. And yeah, the intensity this month is this, all of these things happening with Pluto right at the beginning, the first 2 weeks of January.
Right.
It looks like the 5th, the 6th, that timing, there's just so much going on with all of these beginnings of these conjunctions with Pluto, and everything's beginning to go retrograde, and so there's going to be some shifts with that.
And so with the full moon being in Leo, right, then we're going to have the sun in Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we're going to have that Aquarius-Leo energy there.
Yeah, the sun moves into the Aquarius on the 20th, so
Right.
that's about the time frame when the sun starts moving into another sign,
Right.
20th, 21st, and then the full moon is just a couple days after that. So with Aquarius, with the full moon, I'm going to focus also on the energy of the moon, because the sun's pretty much throwing all of his energy out onto the moon and shining that light. So there can be a big focus on self when we get into the sign of Leo.
Like personality development?
Like personality development or creativity or
Personal expression.
Right. Having fun with it, showmanship kind of comes into play, and it also rules politicians and leaders. And that there may be a spotlight on famous people or people that are out there, sort of more in the spotlight
Right.
with the sun. But it looks like a relatively easy full moon. We don't have anything conjuncting the sun. We don't have anything conjuncting the moon. It's good. It's a brighter, sunnier. So it's kind of celebrating the sun coming back up. And
Right.
the day's getting longer, and I see it as positive
Mm-hmm.
kind of full moon energy.
Right.
But we're still going to be taking with us this theme of Capricorn that's
Right.
been going on, and the signs that I see the heaviest influence on are the sign of Sagittarius.
That's because Saturn's there, right?
Because Saturn's there, and well, we didn't even talk about this, but Venus is going to conjunct Saturn in the sign of Sagittarius, so I think that's a real opportunity to really focus on our personal, or not even personal creativity, but on creative solutions and ideals and what we kind of want to bring in with the new year. With Venus and Saturn, it can give us a real ability to just sit and focus on what we want to create.
Right.
It's a powerful, Venus really gives a lot of energy to Saturn there, so it's going to boost Saturn so Saturn can act in a real positive way.
Right.
And that sign of Sagittarius, and the sign of Sagittarius is our ideals. And it's going on, like I had talked about with the migrant crisis, it's going on at the same time saying, okay, we have to get real about our ideals. We have to get real about how we're going to solve these issues and solve these problems. And wherever it's not realistic, I think it's going to crash really hard.
Right.
And that's the thing with Saturn and Sagittarius that I do want to remind people, if they do have a sensitive point in Sagittarius, the theme of Sagittarius is falls from high places.
Right.
So while Saturn is in the sign of Sagittarius, is going to be most likely, if you're going to have a fall from a high place, it most likely is going to happen when Saturn comes through that point.
And with that, so Saturn is in Sagittarius the whole month of January. And Venus conjunct Saturn, when does that happen? We can rewind the transits here.
Venus conjunct Saturn on January 8th.
Okay, so
So that's
Venus
right in that
conjunct
beginning,
Saturn,
yeah.
right, January 8th. And that's also when the new moon is, no, is that the new moon or the full moon?
The new moon is on the 9th.
Yeah, the new moon is on the 9th. Okay. And this is going to be particularly important, when you think, who is this important for? Well, when it comes to falls from high places, since it's Sagittarius, that is the 10th house from Pisces, right? So when it comes to career-related things, even though this will be true for many people, Pisces ascendants might have to pay more attention to this. Would you think that's...
In their career, I would say they would pay attention to falls from high places, but I would also pay attention to it if you have your Atmakaraka in that sign, if you have your moon in that sign, if your sun is in that sign.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to put this on the video. Yeah, sure. I have, I've been doing a lot of written charts lately, just kind of short answers to questions. And that's one of the things that when I see someone who has a sensitive point here, I say, it might not be time to go hang the curtains for a little while. Get someone else to do it. Don't get up on the ladders. just being more cautious about how high up are you. And if you're high up on a social status, maybe say you're in charge of a lot of people, or people are looking to you as an authority figure. I think just really working with Saturn, having awareness with Saturn, and sitting there and understanding that humility and groundedness and the equality of all things, the equality of all people, the fairness aspect comes in with Sagittarius. I think that's the piece around the fall from high places. Not only is it the arrow that's going up, but the Sagittarius itself rules ideals, and our ideals are that we are all equal. So when you fall from a high place, it's bringing you back down to the level of where you may look down to.
Right.
And, we choose these experiences on some level because we're, I think, collectively evolving.
Right.
And so we choose experiences that might not necessarily seem as fun, but on some level, we're choosing these experiences to keep us in check, to keep us in those places where we keep staying humble and learning and growing.
Right.
So falling from a high place doesn't have to be super traumatic. And if you're working with Saturn and saying, I see myself as a Saturnian being, we're all here, we're all going to die, we all come in alone, we all go out alone, there's nothing to really I necessarily need to hold on to. We can get through a transit from Saturn. It's not devastating. But,
yeah, well, that's true. So do your Saturn mantras for sure.
Or, just paying attention on Saturdays.
And so with this, that was January 9th or 8th, right, when Saturn and Venus were getting together?
Yeah, we got Saturn and Venus. So first, we've got all the stuff happening on the 5th.
Okay.
We've got, let's see, there's Mars and Mercury square on the 5th. We've got Sun conjuncting Pluto and Capricorn on the 5th. And Venus actually squares Neptune on the 5th.
Okay, so what happens on the 5th?
So, yeah, and then on the 7th, we've got the Sun getting close to Pluto and squaring Uranus.
Okay, so let's just break that down. But before we get to those things, I want to get back to the Saturn Venus bit. Yeah. So what was the date when those became conjunct again? Or was that what we were
talking? Venus conjunct Saturn on January 8th.
So January 8th, right, and that's in tropical Sagittarius. Right, okay. Yeah, I was just trying to explain, when we're looking at what your ascendant is, what is this going to influence? So being in the 8th, that's obviously life-threatening situations. So, for example, if we're looking at a Cancer ascendant, and we've got this Saturn-Venus going on, that could deal with, paying attention to one's employees or the people underneath of them in health-related situations.
Yeah, and I would also say be careful of debts.
Right.
Taking on a huge debt and then realizing you can't pay it seems like that's a fall from high place.
Yeah, for sure.
Or it also is enemies. I would look out for any information that you've given other people that could undermine you.
Right.
A lot of people like to just chat about their problems and work or whatever, and
so if you're a Cancer ascendant, don't gossip or chat about your problems. Just keep your mouth shut. And the reason I'm going through these is just so you see that you need to figure out what is your ascendant, and then what sign is this happening in from your ascendant. So with Leo, it's the 5th house, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, perfect, which will deal with children, personal creativity.
I mean, that would be a time frame where you might want to go out on the playground with your children and just kind of spot them.
Right, because you don't want them to fall from a high place.
You don't want that. But then that also comes into your 5th house Lord. So it's happening in your 5th house, but then you want to watch the Lord of the sign there too. So say you have the Lord of another house in that sign, then you're going to want to watch the area where that Lord is ruling over.
Right.
So, if you've got the Lord of the 1st house there in Sagittarius, then you want to watch your body. If you've got the Lord of the 2nd house, you want to watch your money. If you've got the Lord of the 3rd house, you want to watch your communication. 4th house is going to be home, 5th house. And you can align that with, what house it's in from your ascendant as well. And and it's not doom and gloom. It's just all about becoming aware.
And paying attention.
Yeah. Because if you have the good grace to watch this video, that means someone's looking out for you.
Yeah, someone's giving you a heads up. So share this grace with your friends. All right. Well, good. So let's get to the other things you were talking about there with the squares and the whatnots.
The squares and the whatnots.
The 5th, on the 5th of January.
Should we talk about Mars?
Yeah, sure, because that starts on the 3rd.
Yeah, that starts on the 3rd. That's actually the first big transit.
So Mars into Scorpio on the 3rd, tropical Scorpio. All right, so what do you see there?
Well, I think that's a great place for Mars to be, honestly, because it's going to act really strong. It's going to act like a good Mars, and I like good Mars. Because good Mars doesn't really want to pick a fight unless it has to. It's going to stand up and it's going to be firm if someone challenges it, but it's not going to necessarily go out and explode on everyone else. And so I'm looking forward to Mars being in a nice, mellow water sign. Scorpio is all about transformation, too. Scorpio is about security and...
so fighting the inner battles.
It's inner battles, for
And since
sure.
it's in its own home in Scorpio, it gives better capacity to fight one's inner battles.
It does.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it's going to retrograde through the sign of Scorpio.
So it becomes stronger.
It's actually going to be in the sign of Scorpio on and off until August.
Oh, nice.
So we get a real long time.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Which it's going to give us, I think it's a preparation energy, because after, we're not going to get too far in the future, but after that, in August, it's going to come up and conjunct Saturn in the sign of Sagittarius.
Right.
And I do think that that's a time to be aware of whenever Saturn and Mars get together. We want to be real conscious. And so this is a inward battle preparation time when it's going in through Scorpio, and it can kind of help us deal with any issues, fix any problems on an internal level. But Scorpio is also going to represent, very literally, it's a water sign, so it can help us kind of working with the metaphoric inner battle, the water inside, and
It's
also
like the emotional issues.
the emotional issues, the security issues, the fear issues. And I think this is interesting because it starts happening. It's not retrograding yet.
Right.
And a lot of people say when Mars retrogrades that Mars gets turned off and its energy doesn't work. That's kind of one interpretation of a retrograde planet, is that it can be action in reverse.
Right.
But what I've seen is that Mars actually becomes stronger. And so what the things that you're going to want to apply your energy to in fixing in the Scorpio realm of things is you're going to have more ability to do that.
Right.
Maybe more inward insight on how to take care of those problems. So let's say, Mars is going to be in Scorpio. So let's say if it's your second house, it could be your inward problems around money and finances, but not only money and finances, but your belief systems around money, your fear around money, your insecurities around money, and being able to kind of, instead of project it out, be able to go inward and start looking inward for those solutions. It could also be around friendships, because the second house has to do with friends. So while Mars is going through the second house, you may get engaged in some sort of conflict that comes to a really powerful resolution.
For Libra ascendants.
For Libra ascendants,
Because
this
that's
is your
the
second
second
house.
Okay,
But not only for Libra ascendants, but say it's in your 11th house. So if you have a Capricorn ascendant and Saturn's there, and then you look at the 11th house, which can also be groups and other people.
Right. Your social status.
And you've got Saturn in that first house, so you're already redefining yourself in a much more grounded and practical, no-nonsense way. And then say you may decide you don't necessarily want to hang out with all the people that you've been hanging out in, all the groups that you want to be hanging out. With Mars in good dignity here, though, you kind of can apply more logic. And
so for a Pisces ascendant, this might be a good time to go to some marriage counseling.
for the 9th house?
Right.
Yeah. Marriage counseling, school. Say you're working on a big project and you're trying to learn something. Say you're studying with a martial arts master, or you're going inward in your learning process.
Or for an Aries ascendant, maybe a good time to do some cleaning up of one's health, long-term longevity, maybe get some punchy karma, things of that nature. Would that be something you would look at as well? Working through those long-term health issues, or to be more psychological?
Because you're saying it's 8?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Is it the 8th? Did I do it right?
Yeah, I think so. From the Aries ascendant, it's
Right.
8. We're used to using the South Indian chart here, so, when we look at the wheel, we have to readjust and go in different directions, but it's good to be able to be multifunctional. So with Mars in the 8th, I think that's inner battles. I think that's a really great time to enlist yourself in some sort of psychological journey, deeper, and also transcendental meditation and all the things at the 8th house. Or
She doesn't mean the TM version.
No.
Like trademarked transcendental
Not
meditation, just
yeah.
meditating transcendentally. Okay.
Well,
I mean, it's okay if you want to do
deeper.
TM. That's not what we're saying.
Like if you have it going on there, it's a real opportunity to just go really
Inner
deep.
work.
Inner work.
Shamanic work.
Yeah, shamanic work.
Psychoanalysis.
But it could be that you were also working with other people's money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true, yeah.
You know, loans and things. So say you've been trying to get a loan for something and Mars goes retrograde in there, you may actually really be able to apply yourself in a new way to getting sort of the support from others that you need to get.
Right. And so for, let's see here, if we go backwards, right? So for a Leo ascendant, that would be good for maybe fixing up, working on one's house,
Yeah,
re-engineering things
definitely.
within the home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So again, remember what we're always trying to do is think about what house is this for you, tropical Scorpio, and Mars going through that, which begins, was it January 3rd?
Yeah. Well,
Is he there?
January
He's there the
3rd
whole
is
month,
going.
right?
Yeah, he's there till August.
Yeah, till
pretty
August,
much.
right. Okay.
Yeah, Mars basically pops up into Aquarius in March and then starts retrograding in April.
Right.
And then goes all the way back through Capricorn and then starts moving direct and hits Sagittarius again
Okay.
in the beginning of August.
Okay.
So August will be an interesting month. We'll do this again in August.
Yeah. Well, we might do it again before then, but so they're starting to play the music for us, which means we're probably about done here. So do you have any final major points that you wanted to mention that we haven't covered already? Or are those the biggies?
I think those are the big ones. I think we got Jupiter retrograding with Rahu, we've got Saturn conjuncting Venus, we got a new moon in Capricorn, we got Mercury retrograding in the sign
It's true,
of
and then the full
Capricorn,
moon, the 23rd.
and the full moon in Leo. So, you know, that's a lot
Yeah.
going on. That's a lot there's a lot to chew on as far as the transits.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in and meeting Channing here. If you need a session with her, you can find her at AshevilleVedicAstrology.com under the Vedic Astrologers tab. And you can also find classes on Vedic astrology if you want to learn it under the audio and video courses tab, I think. And who knows, we might try to do this once a month. I think it might be good. And if you get a chance, come out to Dobra and Black Mountain or downtown Asheville, or they're also in West Asheville, right?
Yeah, there's 3 of them now. It's the best.
So,
best tea house.
It was good.
Cheers.
We'll be in touch. Take care.
Thanks.